Hey everyone, welcome back. The financial landscape is undergoing a seismic shift as artificial intelligence transforms how we manage, understand, and interact with money. Nearly 70% of financial institutions now report that AI has driven revenue increases of 5% or more, with many seeing dramatic 10 to 20% revenue boost. Yet, for many consumers and professionals, the implications of this AI revolution on personal financial decision making remains unclear. How will these technologies reshape our relationship with money, from daily spending decisions to long term investment strategies? Today, I'm joined by Edwin Endlich, Chief Marketing Officer at Wish and President of the National Alliance for Financial Literacy and Inclusion, to explore how artificial intelligence is fundamentally changing how we view our finances, personally, professionally, and in the years ahead. To support the show, click on this video and visit chrishood.com/show to subscribe to your favorite podcast platform. Follow us on social media or email me directly at show@chrishood.com. I'm Chris Hood, and let's get connected.
Connecting. Access granted. It's the Chris Hood Show, where experts, creators, and change makers discuss how AI and technology are changing how we work, live, and connect. Unscripted, unfiltered, and unhyped. 5, 4, 3, 2,
1. Your digital evolution starts now. Here's your host, Chris Hood.
Welcome to the show. Edwin, would you mind introducing yourself?
Hey, Chris. Great to be here. Yeah, my name is Edwin Endlich, and I am the Chief Marketing Officer at Wish, which is a FinTech in the life insurance space here in New York City.
FinTech. Now, some might argue that AI has been a part of the FinTech space for a long time. How are you looking at that now?
Man, yeah, I remember back when they kept talking about Watson back in the early 2000s, and that was like the future was Watson this, Watson that, and then it played Jeopardy and won, and then we never quite heard back from Watson after that. So AI has been talked about for a long time, especially in the fintech space, but we've never seen anything like we've seen in the past 2-3 years in terms of adoption and, embracing of these new tech platforms, and really kind of seeing almost like the gold rush of people creating their own startups. Really almost feels like we're back in that 2000 internet launching phase where everybody had an idea for a startup. People do now, and they usually start with, it's an AI.
Yeah. Why do you think that is? Like, what do you think was the reason why we went from, it was around us, we were using it, but it wasn't as big of a hype as it is today, to now, which, as you said, everybody's trying to figure out how to get on this bandwagon?
Yeah, I think nothing was as disruptive as when ChatGPT launched their platform, because it was text-based versus voice-based. It changed the game for people. Like, you were used to typing and asking questions to your friends and colleagues on your computer and your phone. They hadn't created an AI assistant like that before. I think we had just seen things like Siri or Alexa, or I'm sure I've just turned on like 11 devices right now. So we have really only seen those kind of like voice assistants is what they were for what seemed like 5-10 years. And they were awful. So they didn't know anything. They never worked for me. And so all of a sudden, when ChatGPT started and it was something you could utilize text for, and it was actually smart and actually replied what you were looking for, was groundbreaking. And I think people were expecting things to go in that voice direction. But when ChatGPT came out, people were shocked and amazed and excited.
That's really interesting. I've actually have not had anybody make that kind of suggestion. And What's really interesting about that is, the Alexas, I use Google Home here at my place, and I agree, it works sometimes. Like if I ask it to turn off the lights, it will turn off the lights. Like that's great. And then all of a sudden we got into ChatGPT, which was able to output a lot of information fairly quickly, accurately in most cases. But yet, if we reflect back then on the voice assistants that are out there, even with all of the AI that has materialized over the course of the last couple of years, those tools have pretty much remained static. They haven't changed
Absolutely.
much.
Yeah, no, I challenge anyone right now to ask their, home system to do anything complex that you would ask it from ChatGPT, and you will still get the same. I'm unable to do that right now. Like, it is. Yeah, I agree. They have really held stagnant throughout this whole type of revolution, and that's really where I feel things like Amazon and Apple are not really part of the conversation, because they haven't shown that they're embracing these tools, adapting and changing. ChatGPT sends an update that they're adding a new functionality or tool, which feels like every week. And so then to see the old school players are acting like old school players when they used to be disruptors, like they're just taking their time to do anything new, I think that's going to hurt them in the long run. Just like they saw with their establishment that they were pushing back on with the IBMs, the NCRs of the world of the 80s, couldn't move as fast as the Microsofts and things like that. So it's a really interesting switch to see.
Yeah. And the other side of this is that I've talked with a lot of people who use ChatGPT. And when I ask them how do they engage with the service, a lot of them say actually with voice assistant types of capabilities, like they will recite what they're thinking directly into ChatGPT and then listen to the response back by ChatGPT's voice agent. And so as you start to kind of look forward and you think, well, okay, we went from voice, then we went to like ChatGPT, but we are starting to move back towards voice. I think the goal in here that you've kind of highlighted is it really depends on what you're able to do with the technology and the type of outputs and recommendations that it's providing, as opposed to, the function by which we actually engage with it.
Yeah, I think that you know, the the smartest platform wins, or the smartest media will win. Voice assistants were not as smart as the text-based ChatGPT, so ChatGPT won. Now, can the voice-based ChatGPTs of the world, sort of start to take over? And I know that that's what OpenAI is hoping to do, I believe, with their device that they're planning. Will be a kind of voice-based, always-on system, which I'm not in love with, just because I don't love, strangely, being on a podcast and hearing my own voice. I don't love talking all that much. So I actually prefer a text-based, visual-based system more than I like a kind of voiced, audio-based only.
Yeah, I've argued through a lot of different consultation gigs that I've had is make the option, provide consumers with an option. And whether that's text or voice, or whether that's chatbot, or I can actually call somebody and talk to a human being, like those are choices, those are options that you're providing, which then allow the consumers to pick the path that makes more sense to them. I think when you start to force one channel over another, then you actually start to alienate some of your consumer base.
Absolutely. I think that, which we've seen every day. Just the other day when I was calling a bank and to ask a question about an account that I had to transfer, and I was stuck in that phone tree where, like, press 1 for this, say your account number for this, and then when you finally get to customer service, none of that information made it over to them. You're starting from scratch at the same time, and I'm like, why is that even there? What was even the point of having that whole half an hour I just went through? It just felt so antiquated and so useless. It did not help me in any way, shape, or form. I wish I could have just opted out of that and just chosen, I don't want to do any of this. I want to go right to and be on hold for a representative. I wish you could just make more choices, especially in the customer service realm. Then sometimes they kind of force you down these tech paths that are only in their interest, not yours.
Yeah, I mean, I've often compared the phone industry with the banking industry and things like, right now I can take my phone number and if I move carriers, I can keep my phone number. I can move to a different carrier. I would love to get to a point where I can have a bank account. And if I choose to leave a bank, I could just carry my bank account with me to another provider. And I realize there's potentially some regulatory issues and some challenges with that. And obviously, as you just said, the banks, it's not in their best interest to let your account go. But, even within the banks, like having internal banking systems, if I want to change my phone number, I could actually log into I have AT&T. I can log into AT&T. I can say I want a different phone number. It will generate a different phone number for me and then associate it back to the phone. Like all of that is fairly intelligent and easy to process. But those types of transactions are almost near impossible in the banking, despite the technology that we have to make those things enabled. And I think ultimately it just goes back to a desire not to do it.
Yeah, and I think, being in the fintech world and being part of the banking world, having bank clients, we see firsthand every day either the antiquated systems that still exist in these big establishments, the types of regulations that they're dealing with, as you can imagine, is at the state level, which means even down to the branch that you're talking to may have different rules that it can and cannot do versus a branch in another state can and cannot do certain things in terms of process transactions or allow visibility into your transactions can differ anywhere over the country. So I feel like, until there's a bit more standardization around that, we'll kind of always have this very difficult to innovate system in banking.
Then put aside the regulations and all of the compliance challenges that we see with traditional banking and fintech. I mean, how much closer do you feel that we are to some form of decentralized banking system where the consumer, you and I, have more direct control over our finances or leveraging some sort of personalized banking system that can be powered by AI that has additional layers of security that can, kind of proactively protect, some of those regulatory challenges. Like, PayPal, I would argue, came in and really disrupted financial services in general. But do you foresee some sort of next step beyond that that's more personalized?
Think that the advent of a personal AI that will be designed for me by me, similar to how much I've customized my home screen on my phone. I will have an AI assistant that I have customized on my operating system, which for me is Apple. It would be across all my Apple devices is one consistent assistant that I've built. And that is the gatekeeper to a lot of my financial life. It is already going to vet transactions for security purposes. It's going to, review deals or promotions from my bank to assess if they're right for me or not. So I'm kind of excited for, the kind of, what will slowly start to allow these AI assistants more and more power into our lives, which I think will be exciting for a lot of us. But then there's that, sci-fi, Skynet end of the world situation that we're all hopeful it doesn't lead to. But I'm still hopeful that we're very far away from Skynet.
Well, let's remove the Skynet portion for a moment, but let's kind of dive into what you're talking about. And this is something that I've talked with a lot of organizations about as well. And I think it's interesting because I can see where we could achieve this particular feature, but I still have questions about how consumers might adopt it. And that's basically, at what point are we comfortable with allowing AI agents, even if it's a personal AI agent, and even if it has security settings and we'll call it limits of control? At what point in time do we think we are comfortable enough with just letting the agent go out and shop for us, like perform the actual duties of using and consuming my money without me particularly present in that process?
Yeah. I think it'll be an interesting balance, and it's starting now. I was just experiencing this while doing some travel investigation with ChatGPT's agent feature, and it does have the interesting feature of it. Once it gets to a place where a decision has to be made, it pauses and asks you to come back and engage. So whether before it makes a purchase, before it enters in your information, before it really even checks off of the box of terms and conditions, it will kind of pause and get your confirmation that you wanted to do this. So I believe that right now we're probably still in that place of we have a really overzealous intern is our assistant, in terms of they keep knocking on the door saying, is it okay if I pick up your dry cleaning at 2 instead of 2:15? And you're like, geez, yeah, of course it is. God, I feel like right now, we will go through that awkward period of training our AI where it'll be overly aggressive in its approval process to make us comfortable. Once we're comfortable and we start saying, just like with the intern analogy, it's like, Sean, you've been my intern for a year. I trust you to book a hair appointment for me. Come on, let's go. And we'll do that same sort of idea with our AI where we'll get comfortable and finally tell it, you can do it. Go, fine. You've done 100 of these without any problems. We will treat it like it's a real assistant in our labs.
I see two sides of this. One, I can see a clear sign like, okay, I need groceries. I'm going to set my limit to $100 and I'm going to say, go and buy what I need. You can scan my refrigerator. You can kind of see what I need. You know what our shopping history is. I need eggs and milk and yogurt, whatever it is. Set that limit to $100, figure out mathematically what it's going to take, go make the purchases, get it delivered. Okay, I can see that as part of the reality. I've got the checks and balances in place and I've got the, what I want and what I don't want. I can also see the other side, which is as these systems become more intelligent, at what point in time does the AI assistant said, well, I know you usually get a dozen eggs, but I've decided that I'm going to get you 2 dozen eggs. And I know you said $100, but I think healthy wise, I'm going to spend $120. Right. And it just starts to, go against some of those regulatory checks and balances that you have in place. Now, we could clearly say, well, if I set it at $100, it should not go beyond that. However, that's one of the challenges we're faced with is how much control are these systems able to achieve, and will it be able to break through those controls? And I think that's the area of biggest concern.
And I think, when we think about our day-to-day lives, when I shop for something on Amazon, it could mistakenly charge me $1,000 for the $4 thing I bought. It could make that mistake. Amazon is on the hook to make that right. So I feel like as long as these tech companies understand they are on the hook for making things right, and those who offer and correct those faulty transactions will survive, and the ones who are unprepared to manage through those issues, they will get terrible reviews and no one will use those. So you'll end up kind of, having to follow the market. Will decide if it's possible and by whom will just be who is prepared to do this, who is going to take this on. It's the same thing with self-driving cars and accidents, saying who's on the hook if that car goes off the rails and crashes into someone. Once someone says, we will take care of it. And Tesla was the first to kind of put their hand up and say, we will cover that issue. If that happens, that gave people comfort.
Yeah, we went through a whole line of, especially when apps and phones came out, like my child accidentally purchased, $1,000 worth of apps and I didn't realize that. And can I get credit back? And so some of the precedence has been set in that. I think beyond the consumer point of view, what becomes really interesting to me is also from a business perspective. And I have said this publicly in a lot of situations that there's probably not a CFO on the planet who would openly agree to an AI system verifying, authorizing, approving some sort of refund. right? Or some sort of financial transaction. They are not going to allow, some sort of automated system to sit there and say, well, I really appreciate your support call. I'm sorry that this has happened to you. Let me, reduce that price for you for next month. Like those kind of financial decisions, I think are going to be a lot more challenging to get past.
Yeah, I think it's similar to like, you want an AI to watch your baby. A good parent would say, I'm not sure. A good CFO will say, I'm not so sure about that, in terms of that's their responsibility, is to ensure that, the financial integrity of that institution stays rock solid. And, AI has not proven itself to be rock solid for any of us who've gotten, hallucinations from a question that you've asked, or just a wildly wrong answer, no matter what Chat GPT or Claude or, Grok platform you use. We've all seen mistakes happen. So I feel like people are definitely still going to need to build that comfort and confidence. And, but we did it with the automobile and the horse. People needed to get comfortable with that. People thought that was crazy, that you were going to sit in a machine and let that machine take you somewhere. And I think that we are kind of in a similar space with AI, where it seems a little crazy that you would let an AI do such important things in your financial life. But I think in 20, 30 years, it'll be common.
Yeah. I would agree with the timeline. I'm still asking questions like, if you were to have surgery and you had your choice between a real doctor and an agent, AI system, which would you pick? And most people still pick the real doctor to be present. But those sentiments are going to slowly change over time, absolutely, similar to the car and other technologies as they've improved our lives. I mean, when the microwave came out, no one was going to say, a microwave? I'm not going to use a microwave. It's going to blow up my house. So those things will naturally change. It's part of the evolution. And it's going to take some time, though, I think, and it's going to take some checks and balances that are probably currently not in place to really make it work.
Yeah. And I think that, culturally, it's always interesting that we're just in a place of real anti-regulation, anti-government type of engagement. And some of those industries that you said had that life cycle of adoption and safety, that was, I hate to say it, but there was a lot of government that helped that, in terms of whether there was like a governing body that was put in charge to ensure that safety protocols were maintained. Things like that were very trusted at that time period. We're now in a place where no one wants to hear about a government agency taking over anything. No one wants to hear about, a regulation is a dirty word. So when we're talking about technology and innovation and adoption, sometimes I get worried that without some of those things, will technology falter and kind of become stagnant, because there's not that mass adoption, because we forgot what's needed for mass adoption is mass comfort and mass safety.
So going off of that, my own personal comfort and thinking about my own personal finances, and especially in this day and age of AI, what are some of your recommendations in terms of how I can use AI to help me better understand my financial situation?
Yeah, I think it's, I tend to take the approach of starting with low stakes and getting higher stakes as you get comfortable with AI. So what I mean in terms of this is, what I've done is take a voice memo, like you said, utilizing voice, and just talk about what you want to accomplish in your financial life over the next few years, and you could upload that to an AI and say, organize this into a plan of action for me. It's not investing for you at that moment. It's not taking over your accounts. It's really just starting to get you comfortable with seeing how AI can help put you on a path towards financial stability or independence. So I'm a big fan of sort of starting with parts of your financial life that are low stakes. A big thing is just, whether it's, explain to me how options work as an investor, and explain it as though I'm 10. All of a sudden you're using AI to get more knowledgeable and have a stronger foundation of education than you did the day before, as opposed to jumping right to a setup an agent to start trading your Robinhood account tomorrow.
Yeah. I used a similar suggestion as you just did, actually, in a workshop I conducted yesterday. And I was explaining that one of the powers of AI is just being able to kind of make recommendations. So, to your point, even if it was something in terms of your personal finances, and you said, well, here's my bank records, I'm going to upload my bank records and provide me with some recommendations and trends that you might be able to discover to help me save more money or anything along those lines. The interesting thing is that, especially like ChatGPT and some of the other LLMs, they're going to respond with, well, what are your personal goals? What are you trying to achieve? Like, do you want to go on a vacation? Is that why you want to save money? Are you looking to reduce some of your debt? Are you looking, to invest in something in the future? And so as you even start to think about what your own personal kind of goals are for your financial situation, having that as part of the context in your research, even if it's a very basic kind of conversation, is going to help provide more strategies back to you without really, like you said, without investing heavily into building agents and going in and trying to connect all of these data points so that it can have a really strong understanding. You can start small and just, here's my goal, here's what I want to achieve, provide me with some recommendations.
Yeah, absolutely. I even, my mother passed away just a month ago. And, AI has been incredibly helpful with helping me navigate what is probate? How do I go through this? What do I have to do versus having to somehow cobble together from Google searches what I need to do? It's been incredibly helpful in advising me and just educating me on a process most of us have never had to go through before until a parent passes away. Do you finally start to ask, that's what that means? Or do I actually need a lawyer, or can I just do this on my own? And so being able to kind of have these tools through this process has been incredibly valuable and also low stakes. It's not doing anything drastic or making big decisions. It's really just helping me become more educated. And as in my professional life, I lead a not-for-profit, the National Association for Financial Literacy and Inclusion, which is a mouthful, but that is really very much about how we could use technology to help people feel more empowered, more educated, get things explained to them in ways that they wouldn't be explained to, on average, because a lot of people feel left out of the financial system because of how complex it feels. So having these tools and agents there to help guide you in a very way that doesn't feel embarrassing. You could ask a lot of dumb questions and feel comfortable. I think that is really going to be a helpful tool for us in the future.
I ask it a lot of dumb questions on a daily basis. So I completely agree with that. Like, go ask it anything and you'll be amazed at what kind of responses you get. Well, Edwin, how can people get in touch with you?
Yes. So if you're interested in protecting your financial life through life insurance, please check out wish.com, and that's UYSH.com, where we have some really exciting ways for people to sort of, protect their legacy, ensure their family's taken care of if anything happens. And then my not-for-profit organization is NAFLI, and that's NAFLI.org. And that's really where I help educate and inform financial institutions on how they can engage with the public and make sure that their products and services reach those who need it most.
Awesome. And I'll be sure to have those links in the show notes. I appreciate your perspective. It's been a great conversation.
Thank you.
And for everybody else who's watching, thanks for listening, tuning in, participating, and we'll be back again next week.